Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Website is up. If you have not seen it, please go to bernardalvarez.com. That's where you're going to catch a lot of the past shows. You're going to catch a lot of my writing, blogging, posting of other articles and whatnot. A great resource of information if you're interested in the information that we talk about here, and that's bernardalvarez.com. So without further ado, let me welcome Rey Hernandez to the show. Let me tell you a little bit about Rey. Rey and his entire family are experiencers, or as many of us might call it, contactees. He is currently an estate tax attorney with the IRS, the U.S. Department of Treasury. He was previously an adjunct professor for 6 years at the New School for Social Research and the City University of New York. He was also the director of the Center for a Sustainable Urban Environment at the City University of New York and the director of the Office of Community Environmental Planning for the City of New York. He has attended Rutgers College, Cornell University, and was a Ph.D. candidate at UC Berkeley in City and Regional Planning. He was also the recipient of a National Science Foundation Ph.D. fellowship at UC Berkeley. Rey resides in my hometown with his family in Miami, Florida. So welcome to the show, Rey. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for the invitation, Bernard.
And thank you for accepting. Let's jump right in here, Rey. Can you start off by telling us a little bit about perhaps your first experience with extraterrestrials? What was that like for you?
Surely. It was a mind-blowing experience because previous to my initial experience, as you could tell by my background, I was pure material rationalist. I also happened to be an atheist. Um, and when this experience happened in March 4th of 2012, it literally was like an atom bomb blew inside my head. My mindset, my concept of reality of who I was, and numerous other aspects of my life just were completely transformed within minutes. And let me just go into a very brief detail.
Yeah.
We had a dog who was 16 years old, very, very sick. She was limping around like an old lady. She was taking Viagra for her heart. She was taking diuretics for the excess water in her kidneys. Her kidneys were not working. And she got a stroke on a Saturday night. We called our vet, and she was totally paralyzed. And so the vet stated that most probably she had a cerebral hemorrhage. And he said he'll open up the office tomorrow. This is a Sunday. He was a friend of ours, so we could put her to sleep.
Oh.
And so my wife, who was born in Mexico, grew up in Mexico as a hardcore Catholic, and she was praying all night. And finally, she got to sleep, very, very late at night. She was praying for a miracle. And then at 6 in the morning, she woke up.
Okay, and we're back. It looks like we had a little Skype issue. Anyway, Rey, go on. I'm sorry, you were talking, having your mind blown and having an out of body at this point.
No, it wasn't so much an out of body. It was that my wife just disappeared in front of me. And then I immediately turned to the corner of the living room without even caring about whether my wife left or not. And I saw this floating plasma being, and it looked like a cylinder, excuse me, rectangular in shape, roughly 2 to 3 feet wide by a foot and a half in height. But it didn't have any external edges because it was pure plasma energy, multicolored, translucent. And I did something which was I couldn't never understood until many months later. I basically waved my hand at it and I said, "Ah, BS. This is what my wife got me down here for." I turned around, I walked up the stairs, I went to bed, and I was immediately knocked out.
Wow.
And then about half an hour later, I woke up and I was fully conscious because when this was taking place, it was like I was like in a fog, like sort of in a hypnotic state. And then when I ran down the stairs, right in the exact location where my wife had disappeared, I saw her and she started to dance in the middle of the living room floor that the angels have cured her. The angels have cured her.
Oh, wow.
And then it was total confusion and hysteria because she didn't see what I saw. I didn't see what she saw. To her, I never went up the stairs. To her, it was like she just looked straight down and the dog was running around and she started to celebrate. So it was only until many, many months later, like 6 months later, that I learned about this concept called missing time.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened to her. It was like she walked down the stairs in front of me. All of a sudden, she looked down, and the dog was running around, cured.
Wow.
Um, so basically, that was our first experience, and for 6 months, we didn't even know what the hell had happened to us.
Right. And what a wonderful thing to be able to experience it with somebody else other than just yourself.
Oh goodness, I tell that to everyone because if it would have happened to me, I would have thought that I was crazy. Like so many experiences that you talk to, they wind up going to a
Yeah,
psychiatrist
yeah.
and taking medications because you think that you're crazy. And then what happened later on, 3 months later, my wife was woken up by our dog, of all things, our dog, uh, at 3 o'clock in the morning. I think it was 3:30 in the morning, and then this dog, instead of going through our doggy door that we have in the back, she was jumping on the front door. My wife opened up the front door. She walked down a couple of flights of stairs, and right in front of her, very very close, was a huge, gigantic UFO craft. Very very close. She saw all the colors, all the windows, multicolored, and so that morning she goes to me, "Oh, my angels came and paid a visit for me, to me last night,"
Wow.
and then she tells me all the details of it. And that was really for the first time when I made the connection between UFOs, because before I thought it was paranormal stuff.
Right.
And then it's like, wow, this is UFO stuff. And so, my goodness, I was like 6 months total on the internet, researching UFOs, ETs, paranormal, because I had never been exposed to any of these things. And then my wife then went to Mexico for about a month, an entire month with my daughter. And there she had four different events that were UFO and ET related. And I won't go into those details because we don't have enough time. And then when she returned, it was like 3 or 4 days later. I was waiting for a friend outside of my house at night. It reminded me of the huge craft that she had seen. And then I had watched this video the night before of this man calling down a craft. And so I said, what the hell? Let me try. And
Mm.
so I went to call a craft. Then after 15 minutes, I said to myself, I'm going freaking crazy with this stuff. Here I am calling down a craft.
Right.
And and then boom, on top of my neighbor's house, like 5 feet from his roof, appeared a football stadium sized craft,
Wow.
a huge, gigantic craft. And then I heard a little voice said, "Daddy, you and mommy have seen UFOs. Next time you guys see one, you call me, right, Daddy?" So without even thinking, because your mind is under control, that's what a lot of people don't understand. I went off and I called my daughter. So then my daughter ran out. She was looking at this craft. Then my friend comes by because I was waiting for him to give me some papers. So he didn't come alone. He came with his wife and his 17-year-old daughter. So now we had five people that were watching this craft, and it was huge. It was gigantic.
Wow.
And then after that, There was another NDE type of events that occurred, which was all planned by these ETs because it was synchronicity was not even the word of what took place. And then it's just a continuance of paranormal experiences. I have not seen any craft since August of 2012. My wife has not seen any craft since the summer of 2012. But it's been numerous types of paranormal and synchronistic type of events that I can go into some detail later on if you want. But you know, that's been, you know, what's been happening with me. You know,
Wow. Wow. And
definitely 2012. And then these particular dates where these NDE events occurred, I wasn't even familiar with the significance of these dates until, you know, many months later that someone pointed out to me. And it was December 21st, 2012, December
oh,
22nd, and December 23rd, 2012. And I can
wow.
go into those details if you'd like of what happened during those 3 days.
Yes, tell us a little bit because I mean there was so much hoopla about those dates and so much misunderstanding, and I do know that that's a very important date in the idea that it's the end of the 28,000 year cycle, and now we're beginning a new age, literally a new age. But I would like to know what kind of connection it had for you and what happened.
Okay. First of all, Bernard, let me give you a background here.
Yes, please.
I've never been into New Age stuff, you know, metaphysics, and to tell you quite frankly, I am still not. You know,
You're a
um,
skeptic experiencer.
I mean, I'm way past that. You know,
Okay.
I'm way past that, but I'm still trying to ground a lot of the things that are happening in some type of rational, you know, scientific
Yeah.
grounding into some of this stuff. So, and again, what I'm about to tell you is the total antithesis of that, of what I
Okay.
just told you, you know,
Okay.
because there's no grounding in what I'm telling you. But basically, after I had that huge experience, and this is from my daughter and I was total of 45 minutes with that huge craft that was 30 feet away from us. That's it. Okay. Um, I then subsequently was led to only read books on near-death experiences and an occasional books on scientific consciousness, but it was mainly near-death experiences, and I did that 12 to 18 hours a day. Um, I barely functioned in my work. I didn't watch TV. I didn't go to the internet. I didn't have any social life with my wife and my daughter. All it was that I needed to read one more NDE book,
Mm.
and that's what it was for 4 months straight until December 21st. During those 4 months, because the experience with that huge craft occurred at the end of August, so it was September, October, and November, and December. Um, During that time period, I had never spoken to anyone about NDEs. No one. Only my wife knew that I was reading hundreds of these books, and she thought that I was going crazy. You know, all the time she would tell me that I need to go to a psychiatrist, that they got medications, that it'll, you know, relax me, you know, soothe me, that sort of thing. and, and I was like, you know, be quiet. I need to read one more book. You know, that's what it was. 12 to 18 hours a day, just purely NDEs. And then on December 21st, my daughter had a fever, low grade fever for 2 straight days. My wife always brought her to the pediatrician. I didn't even know who this pediatrician was because it was a pediatrician that my wife had been taking our daughter to for 4 years. And she's from Colombia. And so I take her. And then when they take her temperature, she had no fever whatsoever. And she never did have a fever after that. To me, it was like a pretext for me to see this doctor.
Right.
So then, out of my voice, I guess for lack of a better terminology, comes like a channeled voice out of my mouth.
Uh-huh.
And as I was saying it, I was like, you know, I wasn't in control of what I was saying it, you know, while I was saying it. And it was, excuse me, doctor, have you ever heard of the term near death experiences? I've just finished reading approximately, 300 books and articles on this topic. And I can unequivocally state that this phenomenon has been scientifically studied and is something that you need to know about, you know.
Ooh.
So her eyeballs pop out. And And in my head, I was like, "Holy God, I'm really going nuts. Why in the hell did I say this to this woman? I don't even know why I said it." And so her eyeballs pop out, and I told her, "Excuse me, doctor. This is all in Spanish. Uh, I apologize. I don't know why I said that." And so she looked at me and she says, "No need to apologize. How did you know I had this experience?"
Oh.
Okay. So then she then tells me the details of her near death experience, which is basically out of body. She didn't go into the tunnel and into, the spirit world. It was basically out of body and what happened to her. And she went on for 15 minutes verbatim quoting how she went through two walls. She was right on top of her parents. She stated verbatim the conversation of her parents. She described the doctor, the nurse, this lady that had a little, with a red shirt, that had a little boy that was playing with a ball, how he was bothering the parents and the father yelled at this lady. It was like, all these details. And my daughter was next to me during this whole time period. And so that was December 21st. December 22nd, which is a Saturday, it was a church dinner. And I was never religious, and I'm still not. But it was mandatory to go to group prayer meetings on Thursday and various activities at the church with my wife. And so this was a church dinner for married couples, which is a Saturday night, right, a couple of weeks before Christmas, or a couple of days before
Yeah.
Christmas. And so we sat in this table, and my wife sat next to this lady from Mexico. And so I sat next to her husband. We introduced each other, and he's Cuban like I am. So immediately, "Excuse me, sir, have you ever heard of the term near-death experiences? I've just finished reading approximately, 300 books and articles on this phenomenon, and it's something that scientifically, validated, and you need to know about it." And so his eyeballs pop out, and in my head, I was like, "My God, I'm really losing it. Something's going on here. So his eyeballs pop out. Then he tells me of the NDE of his mother, who had died the year before, who
Oh
had
wow.
died in his house, and they were alone. And that when the mother was revived in the hospital, tells her the dream that she had, and the dream was that she even described the paramedics. She said it was like a 6'3", a black fellow, uh, 300 pounds football player, followed by a short white woman with a blonde ponytail. And he was like, "But mom, how do you know that? Those are the paramedics." And then she said, "But I told you already, son. I was floating above you, and you were crying on top of me, and you were giving me mouth to mouth, and you told me this, you told me that, you told me that, and it was like the full works." Okay, so after he told me that, I finally knew that these ETs were involved with this, because it just couldn't be coincidence, right?
Right.
And so the third day, every weekend, I always go to my parents' house. And so I said to myself, I need to tell this to my old man, because he's like the world's biggest atheist. I'd never seen him in church, and total atheist. And so I told my mother, and I said, "Come on, mom, let's get Pop dressed, because he's, mostly in bed. He was like an invalid. He had to use a walker to move around, and my father's just recently deceased, and so I sat them down, and I didn't tell them all the ET stuff. I just told them what happened on that Friday and what happened on Saturday. So he goes to me, that happened to me.
Ah.
And so he then tells me about his NDE when he had open heart surgery 15 years ago. And then he goes into he had everything. He had the full works.
Wow.
You know, he even tells me upstairs time doesn't exist. What do I mean time doesn't exist? Well, I was up there at least 20, 30 years. Well, what do you mean 20, 30 years? He says, well, that's how long it took God to show me all the good things that I had done and all the bad things that I had done. And then he says, God is not a vengeful or vindictive. He's loving and educational.
Right.
And he says all the stuff they teach you in church is all full of it.
Right. Right. Right.
That he had the whole out of body stuff, seeing all the doctors operating on his body, and the full works.
Right.
So afterwards, I turned to my mother, like it's in total disbelief, and I said, "Mom, has he ever told you this before? Because I'm just hearing this for the first time." And my mother said that that they only spoke about it one time, and that was in the hospital bed after he woke up from surgery. He was like hysterical, wanting her to tell her the story, and she was like trying to keep him quiet because he had just come out of major surgery, and he was adamant that I need to tell you this. I need to tell you this story. And he finally did tell her that story, and so my mother said that they've never spoke about it since that day. She
Wow.
thought it was just a dream that he had. And driving home that night, I looked up in the sky, and for the first time ever, I looked up at God, because I was a total atheist, and also to these angels, because I call them angels. I said, I congratulate you. In a 4 month period, you have managed to totally transform an atheist material rationalist into someone that has more belief in a universal creator and that we are eternal spirits than any Catholic priest in Miami. You know, and it was after that date that all my crazy experiences started. Before it was just like a warm up.
Right.
It was
Sounds like
after
it.
that day that everything just took off.
And I'm guessing at that point, this kind of became a calling for you to lead you into the work that you're doing today.
No, it wasn't until 5 months later. I know you're going to be taking a break soon, but it was 5 months later that I've been having all these. For example, I would like know if someone's an experiencer. You would be
Oh,
close to someone and like they either had an NDE, an out of body experience, or had seen UFOs, something along those lines. And
right,
it's like a knowing. It's not like I saw an aura or nothing like that. Some people do have those gifts, but
right.
I don't. To me, it was like a knowing. So I would always start off with like a leading question. Oh, what do you think about this? The paranormal stuff. I had a friend that told me about it the other day. And then oh, UFOs. Some people think UFOs about that. What do you think about UFOs? So that that's how I would sort of start a conversation, and it was almost 100%, bullseye with each time,
Wow.
and that height of it really lasted for 9 months. I still get it once in a while, but not like after I had that experience, And so anyway, fast forward to May of 2013 now. I was driving on the highway in the middle of at 8:30 in the morning, right next to the airport on 836,
Oh,
where I'm talking
oh
about, right?
yeah, that's a mess.
And it's a mess, stop and go traffic. And all of a sudden, I feel like I'm pulled out. I'm being pulled out. I'm pulled out and out of my body. And I found myself, I guess the way you can describe it, sort of like a matrix type of reality where I'm pure consciousness. There's nothing physical around me. It's just pure mind. And then all of a sudden, I see a big gigantic wheel spinning around me, and inside the wheel were like different spokes, and each different spoke was a different contact modality, like ET contact, near death experiences, out of body experiences, channeling, remote viewing, um, ayahuasca,
Right,
mystical meditation, you name it,
right.
and it was all spinning around me very slowly. And then I kind of knew that what was holding everything together was consciousness, and that it was all one. It wasn't separate. And then I heard it wasn't a voice. It was like an instant information that's inside you.
Right.
It's not like, hey, Ray, wake up. I'm going to tell you something. It wasn't like that. It was just like, boom,
Yeah.
like an instant knowing. And the message was that I need to inform humanity of the relationship between them, the spirit world, and consciousness. I'm going to need people to help me out. And there's two criterias. This is not about money and it's not about ego.
Wow.
And that's it. Boom. Now here's where the craziest part starts. Okay. The part that I told you about the synchronicities,
Yes.
and these series of things continue to this day. And let me just give you this as an illustration. When I got home late afternoon, I got an email from Mary Rodwell. Okay. And it says, Dear Ray, I'm sorry I'm responding to an email that you had sent me 7 months ago, but I just received it today. Okay.
Oh.
And so then I then responded back to Mary via email. I said, well, you ain't seen nothing yet.
And on that note, take a
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
And welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Today we were speaking about extraterrestrial encounters and the work of Rey Hernandez. And before we went on break, Ray, you were just about to tell us what you were replying to in the email, that this is just beginning.
Yes, this is when the really weird stuff is starting. Um, you probably heard this from other people, Bernard. If you've had these experiences, you can't talk to anyone because of just ridicule.
Oh yeah.
And I've told a couple of my close friends, and I lost like half of them because of this. The other half don't want to talk about it.
Right.
And so what I did is I sent emails to like 10 very big names, Whitley Strieber, Mary Rodwell, Paula Harris, and, people at that level, that you hear on the radio and that sort of thing. And I got like responses back from two individuals. And so what Mary was responding to that email that I had sent, I think it was in September. It was after no, it was even before that. It was before I had seen that huge UFO craft. So it must have been late summer.
Hmm.
And so what I responded back to her, and I said is that, look, this is what happened in August, and this is what happened in December, all this crazy stuff. Um, and so at that point we got on Skype, and I asked her, I said, Mary, do you know go back 7 months to check your emails? And she says no, she can barely keep up with one day's emails.
Right.
And so I said, well, how do you explain that? She started laughing, and she said, well, Ray, by now you don't know what happened. And what happened was this email was like on hold for 7 months, and then the day of my download, it popped up on her screen. And I don't know if you've ever interviewed Mary before.
Not
She's a
yet.
Yeah, she's a wonderful, wonderful guest for you to have, and she's been working with experiencers for over 30 years,
Wow.
and she's has researched over 3,000 cases. She's now writing a book on children that have had ET contact experiences.
Oh wow.
And so you could ask her and tell her, was Ray telling the truth or not in this story that he told me,
Right.
and you'll see that she'll back me up. So what happened was that she was telling me about the work that she does and educating me, that sort of thing. And she told me about this because my some of my information was physics and consciousness related. And she told me that she knew this professor from Harvard who was one of the world's leading experts on the physics of consciousness. And to me, it just went right by me. But the very next day, on at 9:30 in the morning, I get a phone call, and I didn't even know who this guy was. And it was Dr. Rudy Shields, who is now he's a 75-year-old professor, emeritus professor of astrophysics from Harvard University. One of the world's leading cosmologists. His specialty is black holes, which,
Wow.
by the way, he says is the source of the Akashic records.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, you might want to interview him about
Very
that
interesting.
because
Yes.
I won't go into that aspect, but that's just another fascinating topic. So then he calls me up at 9:30 in the morning, and again, you could ask Mary about whether that also occurred, and also Rudy if you ever do interview him. And then he started, for 90 minutes lecturing me about quantum physics, about consciousness, and that the vision that I got of all of these contact modalities being integrated under consciousness, that it's 100% correct.
Wow.
And then after that, he told me, Ray, you need to form, some type of an organization or a structure to form humanity of what was told to you. He offered to be a scientific advisor, and at that point, that was like the last thing on my mind, to do this sort of thing. And so he said, write down this telephone number. And I wrote it down. And this is the telephone number of my mentor. And so I said, well, who is your mentor? He goes, Dr. Edgar Mitchell.
Wow.
And and I was like, wow, I already had knew about Edgar because he's like one of the pioneers in the science and physics of consciousness, and
Yeah.
he started the Institute for Noetic Sciences and all this and that. So finally, 4 hours later, I worked up the courage to give Edgar a call because this guy's a super famous man, and here I am going to be calling him.
Right.
And so out of the blue, so I called him up, and he basically said, "Oh, I've been expecting your phone call," and I was like, and what he told me was that Rudy had sent him an email, and then they spoke later on in the late morning about my experiences. And then and Rudy said that I was going to be calling him. And so what he did is he invited me to his house the very next day.
Oh wow.
So here I was, the third day of these experiences. Oh, at his house, I spent the whole day in his house. And he would just tell me one story after another, after another, after another, after another, how he grew up in Roswell, how he spoke to all these old timers about what really happened in Roswell, how he was up in space. He had a samadhi experience. He told me about other astronauts, all the work they had done over the last 40 years on
Yeah.
consciousness. It just went on and on and on. And at the end of it all, he says, "Look, Ray, you need to do what your ETs told you." Okay. And he
Yeah.
says, "Rudy and I already discussed it. You need to form an organization. We will be your scientific advisors." And I was telling him about Edgar. I have no idea what the hell I'm going to be doing. And he says, "Don't worry, it'll come to you. And when it comes to you, we'll be here when you're ready." Okay. So then I called Mary back and I said, "Mary, you won't believe what happened over a 3-day period, you know? But boom, but you reached, I had the experience. You reached out to me that evening. Rudy called me the very next day, and the very next day I was at Edgar's house. And they want us to form an organization. I said, "Would you be down to be a co-founder for this?" And that's when she said yes. So
Wow.
that's how Free got started. The four of us as co-founders. And tell me, first of all, was the NDE type of experiences that I had a coincidence?
It just it amazes me how it just takes over.
Yeah, and this
I went for
other
something
experience.
very similar. That's why my jaw is dropping. Like this movement of energy just keeps unfolding, unfolding, and you have absolutely no control over it.
No control over it. No control. I'm like, the way I describe it to other people is that I feel like I'm in a play and I am an actor with some ability to ad lib, but everyone knows how the play is going to work itself out.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like Dorothy, follow the yellow brick road. That's all I do.
Yeah.
I follow.
Or more
Yeah,
like Alice going down the rabbit hole.
yeah. Well, that too. You're going down a rabbit hole filled with yellow brick road bricks. You don't know what the hell you're going to end up with.
So, Ray, the name of the organization is the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters.
It's the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters.
Okay.
And now the term extraterrestrial, we don't necessarily mean these are, physical beings from Venus or Mars or something like that. Actually, most of the members in our group hypothesize that they might even be interdimensional, even intradimensional entities. Um, and
I actually call mine transdimensionals.
Transdimensional, whatever term is out there,
Right. I've
Uh,
heard the theory of them being from the future, being outside of time. I mean, just so
well,
many.
what we have learned in our experiential research study is that they definitely can transcend space and time.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the organ. First of all,
Yes,
we're building
please.
a new website. The website will be made available on February 1st.
Okay.
And that's when all of the data from our research study and all of the various projects that we're initiating will be formally published. And the website is experiencer.org. That's EXPERIENCER.org.
Very good.
Now, Free is an organization that's made up, the majority are PhD academics.
Yeah.
We also have 40% are we have 11 members.
Okay.
Six of the PhD varieties, and then the other five people are people that don't have the PhDs, but these are people that have been working with experiencers for at least 30 years.
Wow.
And Mary Rodwell, who I described a second ago, she's from Australia. The other one is Kathy Martin. She also is an experiencer, and she's been working with with experiencers since the early '60s, because her aunt was the lady from um, goodness, I've just got a mental block here. Um, from the very very famous abduction case that occurred in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
And she
and
works with MUFON also, right?
correct, correct. She's the
Oh,
director of MUFON's experiencer research
okay.
project.
Yeah.
And then there's Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who you might have interviewed in the past. Do you know much about her?
No, no, I haven't.
Oh, she's wonderful. She would be fantastic for your show. She herself is an experiencer. She has written 62 books on various paranormal related topics.
Fantastic.
And then the other person is Giorgio Piacenza from Peru, who's also an experiencer, and he's like a genius. He's written articles on advanced quantum physics, on spirituality, on consciousness, philosophy. He's a student of Ken Wilber. Um, he's just a genius.
Right.
And then the other members in our group, besides the co-founders, which are Dr. Edgar Mitchell and Dr. Rudy Shields. We have Dr. John Klimo, who just retired as a professor after 40 years teaching psychology, and he's one of the world's leading experts in parapsychology and the paranormal.
Wow.
And he's most well known for an academic book that he wrote titled Channeling, which has been translated to 18 languages.
Wow.
And then we have Dr. Bob Davis, who was also a retired professor of neuroscience, a professor of the brain.
Okay, great.
And don't tell me how he got involved in what we're doing, because it's a lengthy story.
Right.
And then we have Dr. Leo Sprinkle, who is the first academic to publish articles on experiencers. And he's 85 years old.
My
Almost
goodness.
everybody is way past 65. So
Right. So you
uh,
you have the elders of the cream de la cream.
cream their cream, but from both the academic component and from the grounded, the people that have been working with experiencers.
You got a great
And
team, sounds like.
yep. And the major project that we're undertaking is that we're working on synthesizing consciousness, the science and physics of consciousness, into the various contact modalities. Basically, getting the vision that I got and seeing how we could explain it. Okay.
Okay.
And what we're starting off is we're doing the first ever comprehensive study of people that have had UFO related ET contact experiences. And again, this is an academic study we're doing in multiple languages. We're doing it in English, Spanish, French, German, Russian, and it's also going to be translated into Hindi. And we have someone who volunteered to translate it into Mandarin.
Right.
And so far, it's just in the English language. We had over 2,000 individuals that took our two surveys.
Okay.
And then the findings that we got, maybe we could have another show to go into
Please, yes.
details of the findings, but I can sort of give you like a brief overview of of some of the findings, and it's just things that no one has ever even suspected would be associated with experiencers. Like for example, let me give you some of the details here.
Yes, please.
Yes, for example, um, we concluded that over 60%, around 65% of individuals that have had UFO related ET contact have also had out of body experiences. Okay, let me give you some, and let me give you actually go through some of the surprises, because we asked 600 questions,
Wow.
and this study is a 4-year study, because besides the two surveys, phase three is going to be written responses to 60 open-ended questions, which for each question you could write, a novel on each one if you wanted to, and then the last phase are formal interviews. So let me go into the actual numbers here. I'm
Yes.
reading off the charts here. Have
Okay.
you ever had an out-of-body experience? Okay, this is out of 1,200 people. 819 said yes.
Wow.
Huge numbers.
Big number.
Okay, have you ever had a near-death experience? Again, 1,200 people answered this. 358 have had a near-death experience.
Okay.
Okay. If you could stop your ET contact experiences, would you? Okay. Only 16% said yes. The
Mm.
other 84% said no. Do not stop them.
Right.
Okay. Do you believe that any of these ETs have performed a medical healing on either you or another member of your family? Now get this. Hold on to your chairs. 462 people said yes,
Wow,
that
that's
the
a lot.
ETs have performed the medical healing. Okay.
That's fantastic.
Just like our dog, with
Yeah.
the healing that took place with our dog. And also, I could tell you that at least one member, possibly two members, have had a healing done. This is our board of directors out of 11 people by
Wow.
the ETs. Next question here. And again, Have you ever seen an ET dressed in a monk's robe? And we had altogether 298 people said yes. They said seen ETs dressed in a monk's robe.
Huh.
Do you believe the ETs in general are bad, malevolent, evil? 91% said no.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Okay. Do the ETs have a personality? 78% said yes.
Oh, yeah.
Have any of these ETs been playful with you? 47% said yes. Do you believe that you and an ET have ever reached any kind of an agreement? 45% said yes. Do you believe that there is a connection between the ETs, the spirit world, otherwise known as the afterlife or heaven? 83% said yes.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Huge number
That's
believe
amazing.
there is a connection between the ETs and the spirit world. And that's not stuff that's circulated on the internet, all of these things that I'm telling you.
Right, right.
Did the ETs tell you about a future natural catastrophe or depopulation of humanity? 34% said yes. How would you characterize your last few extraterrestrial encounter experiences? And again, we use ET not to signify that they're terrestrial,
Right, right.
but the full breadth of it. And then we said, what are your beliefs now about your experience? And there's a range here. Let me start off with the most negative range, okay? It
Mm-hmm.
was a case of abduction of the most negative kind.
Mm-hmm.
That was 8%. Okay, actually 8.24%.
Okay.
Now moving up. Okay, so 8% said it was the most negative kind of abduction. Now, the next category, it was a case of abduction, but of a milder kind, a slightly more caring kind. That was 12.7%. Okay, so if we add those two, it was a little bit over 20%.
That had
Okay,
abduction.
that stated that it was on the negative side.
Oh,
Okay,
okay, okay.
okay. Now again, the most negative was only 8%.
Right.
Now it was a case of abduction, but we're seeking permission, more humane, compassionate treatment. 8.4%. Now, what happened to all the rest? Close to uh, goodness, the numbers here would be 70 something percent,
Right.
72%. You are not an abductee, but a contactee, where you are being treated with respect and understanding. 36.3%.
Wow.
Huge number. Now,
Yes, that is compared to the
now
rest.
compared to the rest. Now, moving up the food chain here, it is a case of being a conscious contactee, an egalitarian, an equal relationship. 34.4%.
Wow.
Okay. So now, is this what's being portrayed on the internet and Hollywood?
Oh, no.
Okay. No.
Absolutely not.
Correct. Now, this came from the individuals, 1,200 individuals that took our phase two study, which are the hardcore experiencers.
Right.
Phase one was over 2,000 people that took phase one, and yeah, but here now is the people who've had the major types of experiences in phase two, and that's the response that you're getting.
What I find so fascinating is the number of people that responded. That's a lot. That goes to show a lot of people are getting are having contact in one form or another.
Well, you have to look at how we did the outreach. Our methodology that we utilized is unlike any other methodology. We don't have a lot of time to go all of it, but basically, most of the previous studies on experiencers were just abductees,
Right.
people that would approach MUFON or CUFOS or any of these type of UFO related organizations, and someone found out, oh, this guy had an abduction, and they said, okay, well, would you like to take our survey? That's how that was done in the past. What we did is we used a modern technology, and we had accumulated a mailing list of close over 2,500 organizations dealing with UFOs, with ETs, with CE5 contact, with New Age folks, with both the abduction folks, the exopolitics, the parapsychology, the paranormal, ancient aliens,
Oh, right.
the Stephen Greer type of folks that do the contact work,
Right.
and we also sent it out to over 500 Facebook sites dealing
Great.
in these topic areas, and we did that every month. Okay, every month. It was just tons of work. That's why we were able to get such a diversified group.
Yeah.
The reason was because almost everyone in our group knew that most of the experiencers were not abductees. Is that 1/3 of the people that have had ET contact have acknowledged they've had a quote unquote abduction.
Wow. Now,
Okay.
Ray, I hate to cut you off, but we're running out of time. Can you tell us quickly what's next for free?
Well, we are going to be launching phase 3 of our research study. We're like halfway there. As I said, there's a 4-year study. All of the research findings from phase 1 are going to be put out to the open for everyone. And it'll be February 1st.
Lucky.
And mark it down on your calendars. And the website is experiencer.org. Experiencer.org. And we also have other types of support programs. We have a peer to peer program where we can hook you up one on one with someone to talk to. We're going to be
Wonderful.
having numerous educational type of programs, but we don't have enough time. So maybe you could bring me back later on
Yes.
in the future so I could go into detail about our research findings and also about the other different programs that Free is launching.
Yes, certainly. After February 1st, I'll have to get back in touch with you.
Most definitely. So it's experiencer.org.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for so much information over this last hour. It's been a wonderful show, and I thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Bernard, and I'm happy that you're feeling better.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And to everybody that's listening, I want to let you know I will be back next week. We've got a very interesting show coming next week. We're going to be speaking with author Dylan Stevens, who claims to have information on the true Jesus. I figured it'd be a great show for Christmas week, and we'll see you next.